Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, scientists, educators, social scientists, government leaders, yes, politicians. All will be one to one. Our guest today, Judy Gold, is a writer, social commentator, actress, and stand-up comic. Her book, co-written with Kate Moira Ryan, 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother, became a hit off-Broadway play as well, with Judy performing the roles of Jewish mothers and daughters of every possible religious observance and social edge. Welcome, Judy Gold.
Thank you so much.
For the book and for the show that's based on it, you interviewed hundreds of Jewish women, but it's really about your relationship with your mother, Ruth.
Right.
Are Jewish mothers really that much a breed apart from other mothers?
You know, it's a great question because people would come, non-Jewish people from all different walks of life, would come see the show and come up to me afterwards and say, I'm not Jewish, but I'm a Jewish mother, or I'm not Jewish, but I have a Jewish mother. It's such a universal theme because it's really about family and mother-daughter relations and really mother and child relations. Men love the show as well. And it's really about accepting who you are. And initially when we went out, we started interviewing these Jewish women because I kept getting all this negative press from the Jewish press saying that I was promoting a stereotype because in my stand-up act I always talked about my mother, but I would say stuff that she was saying.
Right.
I was imitating her, and they would say you're promoting a stereotype, and I'm not promoting a stereotype.
You're just promoting your mother.
Exactly. I'm just doing my mother.
So describe your relationship with her.
It's complicated. We're very close, yet we fight all the time. It's funny because Kate, who I wrote this play with, she's Irish, Kate Moira Ryan. And we would be on the road interviewing. She came with me on the road, and we found all these Jewish women. And I would call my mother. I call my mother at least once a day. I need material, and I like to be aggravated. So I call her every day, and we would have, many fights on the phone, screaming and yelling. And then 10 minutes later, I'd call her about something else, and the fight would be over. And she just didn't get the whole, if I get in a fight with my mother, I don't talk to her for a week. But we just don't do that. So, there were some differences where she thought, and plus we don't scream at each other, we just don't talk. And, there were certain things, but there's so many universal things that are just about parent and child. And it was funny, when we asked the women, that was the first question we asked them was, what makes a Jewish mother different than a non-Jewish mother? The answers range from, we love our children more, which was so beyond ridiculous, to people just had no idea what to say. Mm-hmm. But I think the whole stereotype of this overbearing Jewish mother, really, it comes from this, I think, this need to protect your children. You think about Jews being kicked out of every country,
right.
And it's always a mother, protecting her child and trying to keep her children safe and always have contact with her children.
So overprotective is one adjective.
Right.
What are some of the others that come to mind when you think about Jewish mothers?
Well, we have overbearing, we have guilt, Jewish mother guilt. The funny thing is, the only thing that these women had in common, but besides the fact that they were Jewish and they were mothers, was that they all spoke to their children on a daily basis or had some contact, no matter where the child lived. We had many mothers whose children lived in Switzerland or Israel or, abroad, and they all found at least one time per day to speak or email their children. And then the other thing was, every time we went to a woman's house, they had so much food. I gained so much weight doing this project. So that was the only thing.
Okay.
Food and talking to their kids.
Tell me about the egg timer that was attached to your belt.
Oh my God. So I think I'm 6 years old. I come home late. I didn't have a watch, and we had just moved to New Jersey, my favorite place in the whole wide world. And I was at someone's house, a friend's house, and I don't know, we were playing, and I lost track of time, and I asked the mother what time it was, and it was very, very late. And I said, oh my God, I was supposed to be home a long time ago. And I went home. I mean, it literally was like an eighth of a mile away from my house, but we had just moved there. My mother didn't know the area. And I got home and I noticed there was a police car in the driveway. And I walked into the kitchen and my mother's there with the police officer, you know, sitting there just miserable. And I walk in and I don't know what they discussed, but he scared the living daylights out of me. That, you know, it's funny because I'm always late now, so I don't know why. But he scared the daylights. And then the following day, my mother attached an egg timer to my belt. And she would
tell you
set
what
it.
time you
Yeah,
should be
when
home.
it went off, I would get home.
Okay.
It was really not embarrassing at all.
You seem to have had a more stress-free relationship with your grandmother and your father. Is it just easier with grandmothers and fathers?
It's funny because my mother's now a grandmother because I have children, but yeah, of course. I mean, my mother with my children, I am always asking her where this personality was when I was growing up. It's this unconditional, you know, it's because she can give them back, I guess. I don't know. It's just she's generous, she's loving, she's never in a bad mood. And I'm like, where did this come from? And, you know, my father, he worked, and so he had limited time with his children. So I think it was special at that time. You know, it was a very traditional household. Mother stayed home. She worked part-time, but mostly she was devoted to being a wife and mother. And then my father was at work all the time. So when we had time together, it was special. But boy, you know, we just had, but you know, I wasn't an easy child, so I can't.
No kidding.
Yeah, isn't that
I
shocking?
can imagine that. There seemed to be two themes that dominated the household: the Depression, the Holocaust.
Right.
How did those play out in your family?
Well, my father was born in 1916, and so he was 13 during the Depression, and was very affected by it because he saw the devastation. He actually witnessed people jumping out the windows. I mean, it was unbelievable. And, you know, we had two depressions, my mother's depression and the Depression of 1922. So, so he, or 1929 actually. So he really, I'm telling you, he was very frugal and he was always concerned. He never took a risk, especially with his job. He was just gonna, you know, save his money and just do the right thing and never put anyone in a precarious situation. Fast forward, I'm a comic. I never know when my next gig's coming. He hated his job. And so what I learned from him, I don't want to be miserable in my job. I mean, what's more important, to spend so many hours a day at this job you hate to support your family, or to, you know, follow your dream? And I think he died when I was 27, but I think he really did respect the fact that I, you know, was going
away
for
from in a different direction.
Right. But he always wanted to be a professor. He ended up doing that, actually. After he retired, he ended up teaching school. But yeah, he was a tax attorney. He was a CPA and an attorney. And I don't know, he worked for the state. It was, you know, so that was one thing. And my mother grew up in Manhattan and was affected by the Holocaust and not affected by the Holocaust. She had a superintendent who was German, and the super's wife took care of my mother and her sister and brother. And I don't know if you remember. Well, and he ended up going back to Germany at some point and leaving the wife there. And he was captured in the submarine off of Montauk, where he had been, you know, writing, you know, blueprints of all the tunnels and bridges. He was a spy for Hitler. And so they ended up deporting her, and she ended up writing to my grandmother, you know, help me, I don't know where my husband is. And my mother, I mean, I just grew up. My father was also in World War II. He was in England during Blitzkrieg. And, you know, they always taught me, just be careful because everyone hates it. I mean, they're in their 40s when they have me. So they're living through whatever's going on during the Holocaust, wherever they are. You know, my mother's in the United States, my father was in Europe. And so they're teaching me this, be careful. And, meanwhile, all my friends' parents are 20 years, they're one step separated from this whole thing.
So this is paranoia teaching you can't trust anybody.
Right.
You mentioned that your first book was a pop-up version of the Anne Frank story.
My mother, that's a joke. That first book my mother read to me was the pop-up version of the Diary of Anne Frank. But it's a joke. So
you're coming clean about that.
Yeah, I'm coming clean that was just for humor purposes.
You grew up tall, gay, and Jewish. As Dr. Phil would say, how did that work for you?
It was fantastic, especially in the suburbs. People are very tolerant in the suburbs. I grew up in New Jersey. The good thing was that my mother grew up in Manhattan. She knew that there was another world out there besides this suburban lifestyle. And I remember in my bathroom upstairs, I could see the lights of Manhattan. It was like Oz. I was just waiting to go there. And my mother would take me into the city. The one good thing about being tall was that my feet were so big, I couldn't buy shoes. So my mother would have to take me to the special store in the city, and it would be an event. We'd go to a show, and we'd go to the theater, and we'd have lunch.
So you're being facetious when you say it was great.
Oh, yeah, it was awful. But the fun thing was, coming to the city to buy my shoes. That was the only positive thing. But I was 6 feet at 13. Kids teased me incessantly. Now, as far as being gay, I knew I was, it's weird. There's something up, but you don't know what it is. And so I didn't really realize what it was until I went through adolescence. But I always knew I'm different. There's something different about me. And coming to terms with that it's awful because you have a secret. That's what, I think that's where there's so many gay people in the arts, because they have lived in their head for so long, carrying the secret, walking around, play acting, knowing that everyone thinks you're going to grow up, get married, and have kids, that you're straight. Everyone thinks you're straight, and yet oh my God, I have this awful secret. And so, it was agitating, and to say the least. Plus, not fitting in, it just was. I was this big, huge, funny kid who was way different in so many ways. But for some reason, I don't know what, I knew that the future, was going to be great.
And liberation was right across the river.
Right.
We're going to have to take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment.
This is a man who almost learned to walk at a rehab center that almost got built by people who almost gave money. Almost gave. How good is almost giving? About as good as almost walking.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy talking with Judy Gold, co-writer with Kate Moira Ryan of 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. It's published by the Voice imprint of Hyperion Books. When you were doing your interviews for the book and for the play, were there regional differences in the women that you met?
It was so funny because we went, initially we started in the New York area. We started with a group of very Orthodox women in Queens, and then we went to their daughters, and we went to my mother and her friends. And then when I went on the road, I would play Jewish geography. I'd call everyone I know. I'm going here. Do you know anyone who lives here? Do you know anyone who'd be interested in being interviewed? And we'd call a synagogue, a local synagogue. And when I went, I remember I went to Reno and I interviewed this woman who's, I think her husband was a CIA agent or in the FBI. And we went to her house, beautiful house. And it was Friday. And she said, well, I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to get ready for Shabbat. And I'm like, it's not Shabbat, okay? It's Shabbos, okay? We don't talk like that. It was just so funny to hear this.
And a different
Shabbat
accent.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, you're not Jewish. You don't say, And and it was just these little teeny little things that, and they were Jewish, but they didn't. To me, it's this way of speaking and this, with the hands and the accent and.
But the real question is, do Jewish women in the South eat pork? Do they eat bacon?
Do they?
I'm asking you.
I don't know. I don't think so. They better not. Maybe. They do in the North. Hello.
Mm-hmm. Well, then they've got to eat it in the South.
I don't. But it was funny because it ranged really from completely Reformed to people who didn't even know anything about the religion to completely, the wig, the whole thing.
Now, you said that you especially identify with Orthodox Jewish women.
I was so scared of them. I walked in. Now, first of all, my thought was, I thought they would judge me. So I didn't tell them I was gay because I was at the time I was interviewing them, I was pregnant. And, they're like, oh, your husband must be so thrilled. And I'm like, yeah. And I just I didn't say anything. And I thought, wait, I'm asking these women to open up to me. And I'm not being honest with them. And I have a son. I already had a son. And I thought, what kind of message is this that I should not, be who I am? So I told them they were so, I got to tell you, when we asked them questions, they were so proactive. One of them, she was incredible. This one woman, her son was a special needs child. They all went to yeshiva, all her kids. And the yeshiva couldn't facilitate her son's needs. So her husband would come home from work and she went back to school. He would take care of the kids at night. And she went back to school and got her master's degree and opened a yeshiva for special needs kids. And I thought, oh my God, I'm thinking she's at home making soup and, ironing her husband's handkerchiefs. And meanwhile, they were the most educated, proactive, not judgmental, really. I didn't agree with them. All but one said they would sit shiva if their child married someone not Jewish.
To mourn.
Yeah, to mourn, as if the person's
dead. Right.
Yeah, because he or she married a non-Jew. And, and then one woman, we said, would you sit shiva if your child married a non-Jew? And she said, what's shiva? So it really ran.
Sort of balance yourself out. Was there any one woman who made a particularly big impact on you? Sort of stood
all
out?
of them a little, all of them. One of my favorites was this Chinese-American convert. Her parents were pork importers in San Francisco.
And she married a Jewish guy? Is that what happened?
She met this guy in a bookstore, and he was Orthodox, and they dated, and he said, I want to marry someone Jewish. And she was adamant about saying, I didn't convert for him. I actually went out on my own and started investigating. And she converted. She wanted to become a Jew. Her mother, her family shunned her. She said she would bump into her mother's friends on the street and they would say, oh, I have someone to fix you up with. And she'd be like, I'm married. Her mother told no one. It was sort of this, I identified with her in so many ways of the mother. My mother was always so quiet about me being gay. Mm-hmm. And so I identified with her so much about her mother hiding her quote unquote lifestyle and not accepting it and making believe it wasn't there. And also, and she said, I said, of course, we asked everyone 25 questions, but I had to ask her. The 26th question was, why do Jews love Chinese food so much?
And the answer?
I don't know.
Not clear.
No, clear. Clear, but we do love the Chinese food.
Do the politics of the country inform your show?
The show is set as is. It won't ever change now. But as far as my stand-up, yeah. I never was that political until there's so many different things that happen in your life that make you more aware. So the death of my father, the birth of my children, and also just the fact that the government has really personally affected me. And so when you're passionate about something, you have to talk about it. And so I definitely, I get so infuriated when I read the newspaper, and I have to, at least I have a place to vent, which I'm really lucky about.
Right. What was it like coming out as telling your mother that you were gay?
Well, as the Jewish way is, you just don't talk about it. It's sitting right there. Like, I could have a big poster that said, hey, Mom, I'm gay. And she would say, what, is it going to rain today? Like, as if it's not even there. So we're very good at avoiding things. And what happened was I had someone come over and actually, while my mother was there, and mention, as, you know, off the cuff about me being gay. And that was the first time it was like in her face. It wasn't really, but, you know, to her it was. And so we talked about it. She never shunned me. She never shunned my partner. She was angry. You know, it was like she was angry about it. And it was because of her friends. It was, you know, it was...
What they would think?
Yeah, it's this whole generational thing. What's everyone going to think?
Right.
And I thought, okay, this is her. She's, you know, 41 years older than me. But I never felt unloved. I never felt, you know, she didn't, when my first son was born, there was no big announcement sent out. And finally, when she wasn't a lot of her friends came to the show and said to me, you know, I'd go visit your mother and I'd see this picture of a little baby and I'd say, who is that? And your mother would say, that's Judith's roommate's baby. And then she'd say, Judith's roommate had a baby and then Judith adopted it. I said, Ma, what do you think? People think that I have a roommate, I'm adopting, where's the kids living here? Then we should split that too. It's an expense, you know. So she wouldn't tell people. And then finally I said, I can't, this is a bad message. I can't do this. You're not going to see Henry unless you start telling people. And then her friends were like I care.
So has she changed in that regard?
Yeah, she's very open about it. But it was weird because I was just in Florida doing the show, and a woman in her 40s came up to me. She has a daughter in her 20s, gay, and she was so distraught. What are my friends going to think? And I thought, here we go again. This woman's, you know, you'd think, you know, someone in their 40s would be tolerant. And
right.
And it was all my friends' kids are getting engaged, and what do I tell them? It's like, it's not about you, it's about it's about your daughter and her being happy and being who she is.
And that's true of Jewish mothers, African American mothers, Irish mothers, Italian mothers.
Yep.
You write that you wanted to raise your sons differently from the way you were raised by your mother.
Right.
Are you doing, how's that going for you? Do you find yourself saying the same things
I say the exact same things. I mean, it is a lot different. We live in New York City in an apartment building that's basically a kibbutz. Everyone's really friendly. They're exposed to a lot of different kinds of people, which I love. They're not prejudiced. You know, it's so weird to hear my son. You know, I talk about in my act that we were playing basketball, my older son and a bunch of women, and we got in the car, and my older son Henry said to me, you know your friend Jean we were playing with? I said, yeah. He said, is she a lesbian? And I said, yeah. And then he went back to playing his Game Boy, and I thought, okay, if I was driving in the car with my mother at 10 years old, and I said, Mommy, is Mrs. Rosenthal a lesbian? We would have been smashed into the divider on the New Jersey Turnpike. You know? It's just, there's nothing... And you'd now
be a quadriplegic instead of a comic.
And I'd have a whole different book.
Right,
it's just that there's nothing attached to it. It's so, prejudice is so learned, and kids know. I'm telling you, kids know. I see it with my sons, both of them. You know, he'll come home, one of the older one. This one called me a fag, or this, you know, this one said that you're gay, and half these kids, I don't even think they know it. You know, they hear it, they don't know what it means. And to him, it's like, you know, it's a personal affront. Mm-hmm. And I said, Henry, you know, everyone is a jerk. You have to realize that people are, there's always jerks everywhere.
For the last and most important question, what's with the rugula?
Love rugula. It is. Have you had the rugula?
I've had rugula, yeah.
Do you love it?
It was good. I haven't had a lot of it, you know.
All right. Zabar's, the best rugula. I don't know. It's the best. It's hard to make, but it's the most yummy. I don't know. It's just the greatest dessert. And Jews seem to always have rugula in the house.
It seemed to be every house you went to.
I know, rugula. I mean, it's always on, and it's funny because everyone says, oh, rugula. And I'm thinking, it's always here. What are you talking about?
So it's pronounced rugula.
Rugula. I say rugula. You know, if you can put a at the end of anything, then you'll sound like a Jew.
Sound Jewish.
Yeah.
Well, this half hour has gone very quickly.
It has.
And next time I'm going to tell you some jokes.
All right, good.
I'm sorry, though, but we're out of time. Judy Gold is the author of 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. and performs her one-woman show around the country. For the City University of New York and 1 to 1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.